Go. All right. All right. Let's get it. I got a popcorn
When I
mate.
was 21, I transferred to a college in San Francisco. I checked out a room for rent on Craigslist. It was in a nice two-bedroom apartment. It was cheap rent and close to campus, so it was the ideal spot. The girl who lived there was 29 and her name was Beth. She was tall and pretty big. I mean wide. And she had this jet black hair and wore pale makeup.
Hell
She
no.
seemed nice, although a little quiet. But she seemed to like me and agreed to let me move in. So far, so good. My first night there, we went out for pizza. And that's when I could tell that something was a little bit off with her.
Yeah. Hey, it's the first interactions. You can tell a lot by a person by the first interaction. I don't care what's going on, what's like. I don't care what you say. You can say no. You can say something or nothing at all. You can do something or do nothing at all. But every time you don't say nothing, you saying something. And every time you say something, you saying something. And every time you don't do nothing, you doing something. And every time you don't do nothing, and every time you do something, you doing something. First interactions is everything.
Throughout dinner, she kept telling me how I looked like Shia LaBeouf. I didn't know what to say, so I just shrugged it off with a thanks. I mean, I look nothing like Shia LaBeouf, so it just didn't make any sense to me. When we got back home, she asked if I wanted to see her room. I said no.
This story sounds familiar. Is she about to have pictures full of Shia LaBeouf? Because I remember reacting to a horror story that mentioned Shia LaBeouf in it.
So she took me to see it anyway. Her walls were covered in posters of Shia LaBeouf. She even had printed out photos of him all over her mirror. She owned all of his movies also. I didn't know what to make of it. Honestly, it was creepy.
She's crazy as hell. She's crazy as a mother cluck. What are you talking about? It's okay to have like, 2, 3, maybe 4 pictures of somebody that you like, a celebrity or somebody that you not even yeah, it makes sense to have, a celebrity. But your average regular person. See, it's a difference between having like 3 or 4 pictures of a celebrity that you have a crush on up on your wall, and then it's also different when like you like your classmate or your coworker, and you got pictures of them on your wall. Like that's you need to go to the mental hospital for that shit. But then to have like your whole room, the flooring, the ceiling, the walls, your bed, your sheets, your phone case, your lights, everything is engraved, encoded with somebody that you like. That right there, you need to be left alone for the rest of your life.
The whole night she had been saying I looked just like him. And now it's obvious to me that she's obsessed with the guy. So a few weeks passed and I never really saw her that much. We didn't spend any time together, really. She would come home from work and practically run to her room. She would spend the whole night in there. She had this creepy high-pitched giggle and I would hear her giggling through the walls all night. I wondered what the hell she could be possibly doing in there.
Oh my God.
Occasionally, she would come out and talk to me for about 2 minutes. She would always be slurring her words, so I suspected she was drinking a lot. Sometimes she wouldn't say anything. She would just stand in the hallway and watch me in the living room, just standing still, not saying a word.
And that's what Craigslist is going to give you. Nothing but pure cluckness. The fact that Craigslist is still a thing and people still use it is beyond me. But I can only imagine that Craigslist only gives you nothing but cluckness. Pure, not pure, just cluckness. The deep web, the dark web, that gives you pure cluckness. I couldn't say it.
Turn to see her and be surprised and say, "Hello, Beth." And then it would be this long, awkward pause, and she would give out this creepy, high-pitched giggle. It was very uncomfortable being around her. She gave me the chills. So one night I woke up at around 2 a.m. because I heard what sounded like the front door being unlocked. I came out of my bedroom and all of the lights were off. I came out of my bedroom and all of the lights were off, but I could still see Beth standing at the front door. She had her face against it. She was turning the lock back and forth over and over again. And every time she turned the bolt, she mumbled my name. Max Barker, Max Barker, Max Barker. Seeing her standing in the dark and mumbling my name really freaked me out. And it doesn't help that she kind of looks like a bigger version of the girl from The Ring. I just quietly went back to my room, but as I did it, I walked backwards. I got in my room and I just tried to go to sleep. One night I was watching Gladiator and she stumbled out of her room and turned the living room light on, forcing me to pause the movie, which was annoying. She then asked me if I wanted to hear about her ex-boyfriend. It was an uneasy segue into this topic, but I just said sure and then awkwardly sat back and I listened to her. 10 minutes into her story, she was so riled up. She was screaming at the top of her lungs about their breakup. I was worried that the neighbors were going to call the cops. She wasn't listening to me when I asked her to just lower the volume. Amidst all of her screaming, one thing she said that freaked me out, she was in such a fit and yelled, "I'll slit his fucking throat." That was a big game changer for me. Suddenly, I had no idea what this girl was capable of. She was practically a stranger. And everything I had seen was becoming alarmingly disturbing.
That right there was a game changer. It wasn't the fact that she had mad pictures of Shia LaBeouf in her room, everywhere. That right there for me, that would have been a game changer. That right there would have been enough for me to just get the hell out of there. Because I ain't never, ever, ever seen that shit in my life. Not in person. And I don't want to either. That man, Jesus. Like me and baby girl, we got pictures of us, quite a few. It's like a collage of us, just like up on a wall, right? But wouldn't it be weird if she just had like me, like what if she had her own room, like me and her share a room, but like what if like she had her own smaller room where it was just me, pictures of me, sculptures of me, lasers of me, paintings of me, drawings of me. I'm on beds, I'm on windows, I'm on lights, I'm on phone cases, I'm on computer cases, I'm on the walls, ceilings, I'm on doorknobs. Like that right there, I don't think that would have been, that at that point I think I would have broke it off. Cause that's like, you're just obsessed. You're upset, like, man. I would have broke it off. Oh, yeah. That, man.
After a few more minutes, she told me thanks for listening, and she started doing her giggle. I got out of there pretty fast and went to my room to go to sleep. I had a pretty unsettled feeling about being in this house with her.
Oh, yeah?
And what's worse is there was no lock on my bedroom door.
Oh my God, that's a setup. That was a set. It's Craigslist. It's a setup from the very moment You go on there.
I pushed the edge of my dresser in front of it to act as a little barricade. I woke up in the middle of the night to the sound of my dresser scraping against the floor. Beth was pushing my door open. I turned on my light, shouting at her to stop. The thing is, I could see her through the opening of the door. She was so drunk and had this insane look in her eyes. I pushed the door closed and yelled at her to go to bed. I could hear her walk back to her room, but I couldn't fall back asleep. The next morning, when I went out into the hallway, my heart dropped. I saw one of her steak knives was on the floor by the door.
Jesus.
I got goosebumps all over my arms. All I could think about was her saying that she would slit this guy's throat. I confronted her about it, and she had said she didn't remember trying to push my door open. She said she didn't even remember telling me about her ex. At that point, I had enough. My lease was month to month, so I found a new spot and I moved out. About a month after I moved out, she contacted me. I was at the movies and my phone was off. When I got out, I turned my phone on, and to my shock, I received 40 plus text messages that she had sent me over the past 2 hours. They were all just insane texts that ranged from everything between, "Hi, how are you?" to, "I fucking hate you." It was insane. I didn't respond and I never heard from her again. I always wondered if I hadn't set my dresser in front of my door, would she have quietly come into my room and slit my throat?
Shut up.
It
Shut
still
up.
freaks me out to this day.
Shut the cluck up. You know exactly what has happened. Shut the cluck up. Shut up. EJ Hunyadi?
Hello, my name is EJ Hunyadi. Follow me on TikTok at EJ Hunyadi. That's at EJHUNYADI on TikTok. Recently, my friends and I had a rather close call with a stray bullet. And when I say close, I mean inches close. Needless to say, it's not something we'd ever like to experience again. So about a month ago, my friends and I had tickets to a professional hockey game in Minneapolis. The game was about a 5-hour drive from where we lived, so we decided to make a weekend trip out of it. On that Friday afternoon, I was picked up by my friend Kevin. We then picked up my other friend Dan and hit the road. We weren't heading for a hotel, but instead to the house of a mutual friend, Jack. Jack lived in North Minneapolis, and he'd offered to let us stay at his house for the weekend. We'd all grown up with Jack, and were good friends with him, and he had tickets to the hockey game too. We figured staying at his place would make the weekend a lot more fun. Plus, it would save us money on a hotel. We arrived at Jack's house early in the evening, and Kevin parked the car on the street out front. He texted Jack to let him know we were there, and we got out and went to the back to get our bags. It was about at this time that we heard tires screeching, and we turned to look at the intersection directly behind us. A green compact car apparently cut off another car, a dark-colored SUV, as the driver was trying to proceed through the intersection. Both cars stopped, and the two male drivers had rolled down their windows and started to yell at each other. Not wanting to get involved, I quickly grabbed my bag and walked up the path to Jack's house, with Dan close behind me. The house that Jack lived in was sort of retrofitted as a duplex, where he rented one floor and someone else lived on the other floor.
Shit.
Jack had moved to the city pretty recently, and we'd never visited him there before. So when we entered the walk-in porch, Dan and I weren't sure which door was his. As we stood there, I pulled out my phone to call Jack and ask him to let us in. Kevin, meanwhile, was still at the back of his car rearranging some bags and trying to fix a panel that had popped loose during the drive. The two drivers were still yelling at each other, and at this point, they had both exited their vehicles. I didn't have a great view of the situation from the walk-in porch, but I could still hear them yelling. Jack's house was right on the corner, by the way, so we were only about 20 yards away from where this was going down. All of a sudden, we heard a loud pop. Dan and I froze, and I saw Kevin stand up from the back of his car and look around. I immediately thought it might be a gunshot, but I wasn't 100% sure. I turned to Dan, and from the look on his face, I saw that he thought it was a gunshot too. Okay, let's get the hell inside right now, Dan said to me nervously. I unfroze and quickly made the call to Jack, who said he was on his way to open the door. Meanwhile, we heard the two cars peel off, and Kevin joined us on the walk-in porch. We all agreed that it was a gunshot, and that it had come from one of the two drivers involved in the road rage incident. None of us had seen it directly, but clearly one of the drivers had fired a gun. We didn't know who shot or which direction the bullet went, and Kevin said that he didn't hear any bullets whizzing past. Jack led us into the house, commenting he heard the shot too, and swearing that nothing like that had happened since he moved there. We talked about it for a bit, but no one was hurt and the drivers were gone anyway, so we just shook it off. Following that, we had a great evening of eating, exploring.
Shook it off. Shook it off. It's a gunshot. How do you shook it off? You know, you just gonna go back to like ain't shit happened.
And getting drunk at the nail biter of a hockey game. We didn't use Kevin's car for the rest of the weekend because Jack knew the area and offered to drive us everywhere. When we were ready to head home on Sunday afternoon, we piled back into Kevin's car. That's when we realized exactly where the bullet had gone. There was a clean bullet hole clean through Kevin's rearview mirror and windshield, with glass shards and bits of plastic scattered across his dashboard. Stunned, we looked around for an entrance hole in the back of the car, but we couldn't find one. That left only one possibility. That bullet came through the open hatch of Kevin's car while he was hunched down in the back trying to fix the panel. Based on the bullet's trajectory and Kevin's position at the time of the incident, there is no way he was more than a foot away from being hit. If he had been standing up, Kevin would have been shot in the head or neck and might be dead right now. The attached photo shows where the bullet went through the car's mirror and windshield. After that, well, I sincerely hope it went into a tree rather than one of the many houses in the area. Once the shock of our discovery wore off, we called the police to get a report for insurance purposes. An officer showed up, and Kevin showed her the bullet hole in his windshield. At first, she was confused about the lack of an entrance hole in the back. I think for a second she even suspected we were messing around and fired a gun from inside the car. But when Kevin told her the details, why the back was open and where he was standing, I saw the officer's jaw drop. Unfortunately, none of us could provide the officer with any truly useful information like a detailed description of the shooter or a license plate number. Once the officer left, our next issue was figuring out how the heck we were going to drive 5 hours home with a bullet hole through the windshield. Thankfully, a patch job of a sealer and duct tape from a local hardware store did the trick. On the drive home, we had a solemn conversation and a few hours of hard thinking about the fragility of human life.
Fragility?
Even a month later, I'm not sure if I've fully processed how close Kevin came to being shot and possibly killed. I can't even imagine how he feels about it. It's crazy to think how different our lives would be right now if Kevin was just standing a few inches taller when that gun went off. As for the guy who thought it was a good idea to fire a gun in a neighborhood full of people and houses, I hope he either gets his life in order or ends up in jail before he hurts any innocent bystanders.
I've never been shot at. God forbid I thought this was the third story.
So I'm a female in my late 30s, and I'm a travel counselor for a large tour company. We're pretty well known, so I'm not going to be dropping any names for privacy's sake. That being said, what occurred here is 100% for real. And yes, I know everyone claims that on here, but you'll just have to take my word for it. So as a travel counselor, which is fancy for a travel agent, I book many cruises. Both my company and many cruise lines offer us in the industry what's known as a fam trip to familiarize us with what the cruise line offers. So I was approached 2 weeks before the holidays with the chance to take such a trip on a 4-night cruise to the Baja Peninsula. It left the day after Christmas. Since my husband had a big guys trip with his best friends lined up, I thought perfect. My in-laws had been begging us to watch our 7-year-old daughter. So she went to grandma's and I went on a free cruise. What could go wrong? A little sand, surf, and sun. While it's winter, 66-degree days are much warmer than the teens and below zeros we have up north. The flight was perfect. The embarking went on as smooth as butter. The lovely balcony room I was put on was wonderful. So far, so good. That night, I'm at dinner, and an Indian man sits next to me. Now, this struck me as odd as there were several empty seats available.
He be that same dude that when you park in the back of the parking lot away from everybody else, so now you by yourself, he gonna park right next to you. He one of them motherfuckers.
He strikes up conversation, introduces himself, and says he's traveling with his elderly parents,
Okay.
sister, and her family.
Okay.
He's 26, works in communication, and attends college in London.
Damn.
He seems nice. We have a lovely conversation, and I throw in there that I'm happily married and had a child.
I can usually tell when people don't want to talk, but it seems like the opposite for me. I think some people just don't know when I'm not in the mood to talk. You know, like I'm fine, or sometimes I'll be not fine, and then sometimes I would be fine. But either of those moods, I just don't like. Maybe I just don't want to talk right now, you know. And I just give out strong hints that I don't want to talk right now. Like I can be a blunt person when I want to, but like I just try my hardest not to be like that. But sometimes you gotta be like that, cause sometimes I just don't want to talk, but you just keep talking and keep talking and keep talking. Like this dude, I don't know if she, like, I don't know what's going, like, he just keeps talking. Shut the hell up.
Finally, his family arrives to eat, and we part ways. I figure I'll never see him again. The next day I get off our port. I signed up for a Segway tour, and who do I see in line? My new friend and his father, and who I also assume is his oldest nephew. He of course waves at me, and we make simple chit-chat before starting our tour. After the tour, there was an opportunity to walk around. I chose to browse the shops and get some pizza. However, I felt like I was being watched or followed.
You are.
I turned around a few times but didn't see anyone. I shrugged it off and went about my day. I go back to the ship and I change into my bathing suit, and I go lay out on the deck. It's a perfect 72-degree day, and my skin loved the vitamin D. I order a drink and I put in my wireless headphones. I'm dozing off when I feel hands roughly shake me.
All right. If I was her, I would have swung with my eyes closed. I would have just swung, kicking, all that. I don't care who I hit.
I joked sitting straight up. It's my so-called friend. Although he's frowning, staring at me, disapproving. He angrily tells me I'm not allowed to show off my body.
What?
And then I'm disrespecting him and his religion by acting like a slut. By now, I have 2 cruise employees I'm friends with who hear the commotion and are telling him he needs to leave me alone. Never mind, I'm embarrassed at this point. I tell him I'm a married woman, and what I do isn't any of his concern. As he stumps off, he informs me that if I was his woman, I'd be sorry. I figure I won't have to deal with him, and the next day is perfect. No sign of him. We are at sea, and I hung out on my balcony sunning and dozing. That night, after a few martinis at the piano bar, I settled in my room for a night after talking with my hubby through Facebook Messenger. I'm about to doze off, but my door starts shaking. It sounds as if someone is violently running into my door. I throw a robe on and I look out my peephole. It's that Indian guy. And right now, he looks crazy. It was formal night, so he's in formal wear. His hair was done, red face screaming profanities at me. Luckily, the guy across the hall from me opens his door, and he tells the creep to get the hell out of the hallway before his kids are waking up. The Indian guy gives one last profanity, and then he leaves. The next morning, the guy across the hall tells me something terrifying. He swears that the guy had a steak knife in his hand. I informed the cruise director, but I'm not sure what happened after that. I only saw that guy one more time on the cruise, as we were disembarking. He was carrying one of his nieces, and luckily he didn't see me. I always wondered what would have happened if that guy would have gotten in my room, and why he was acting like that.
I got a question. Random. When it comes to a cruise, who is it? One person that drives the thing, or is it like multiple people? Cause I would. That's a big ass boat, big ass. You know what I mean? Cruise ship.
Nightmare File.
Gator Files. Gator Files. And that's all. That was that. This last. Oh shit. The last story was kind of crazy because it's like when you think about it, you're like in the ocean. You're in the middle of the ocean. Like what? You can't really go nowhere. You know. This one right here with the gunshot. I was going to say, I've never been shot at, and I do not plan on ever getting shot at. But I can only imagine either being shot or shot at is both traumatizing for the rest of your life. You know, it has to be. You know, but I'm sure it's different versus being shot at and missed, or shot at and it got you. I'm sure those are two very different experiences. And I'm sorry for anybody that has ever experienced that, but I'm sure that's like life change. Like, man, if I ever got shot at or anything like that, I think I would just automatically go, like, not only, like, on some real shit, I think I would go into, like, some law enforcement. I don't know. Because I already like protecting people, but it's just, like, the law enforcement is just a dangerous job. Craigslist. It's Craigslist. It's Craigslist. It's Craigslist. It's Craigslist. It's Craigslist. Keep it cool, keep it classy. And I love you. Stay happy. My family.